One of the surprise hits of 2011 was Rise of the Planet of the Apes, making near $500 million worldwide. So it was no surprise when a sequel was announced. Sky Movies caught up with the filmmakers and the stars of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes in San Francisco to find out where this movie picks up the story.
War has begun.
In Dawn, we have to imagine 10 years have passed. The pandemic, the simian flu as it's called, has struck across the world and vast swathes of the human population have been wiped out.
We've been through hell together!
We are survivors of that because there are some people that are immune to it.
It took us 4 years fighting that virus!
Caesar has taken the apes up just over the other side of that bridge, actually, to Muir Woods, just outside of San Francisco.
But we are survivors!
And created a community of all these disparate apes, of gorillas and orangutans and chimpanzees.
This is your home, and I don't want to take it away from you, I promise. But other people are coming, soldiers.
They believe humans have gone, that they've just been killed or they've gone away.
If we have to fight them, we fight them.
They haven't seen humans in years. It's 10 years after Rise. And when they find out that there are humans, there's suddenly this question of whether or not things are going to turn violent. And the rest of the movie lives on the razor's edge.
I've seen things. I've seen the way they are. They want what we want, to survive. They don't want a war.
Caesar, who has grown up, with human beings, he brought up by a scientist.
Caesar, it's your home.
Who was that?
A good man like you.
So I played, obviously, Caesar from an infant through to this troubled teenager who once believed that his father was this scientist and now realizes he's in fact an ape.
Caesar love humans more than apes.
He is proud to be an ape now, and it's that kind of very complex mixing of those ideologies, I think, that actually once the humans come back, that he has to then wrestle with. Who does he, in order to find a peaceful solution when the conflict starts to escalate, he has to draw on both of those sides of himself.
Apes together, strong.
I thought it was one thing to see him be a revolutionary and lead this kind of prison break and lead the apes out of bondage, and then it was another thing to see the world that they'd created and see the beginning of articulation and language. In a way, I see them in this kind of tribal phase that parallels our own development but is also uniquely ape, and that was the fun to explore. So you see him really in an ape kingdom as an ape king.
When the humans turn up, there's suddenly a huge threat to the ape community, but there's one human being who doesn't seem to be worried or threatened or has some kind of empathy about him that Caesar makes a beeline for.
We don't mean any harm!
They're apes, man. You think they understand what you're saying?
Do they look like just apes to you?
Just an immediate glimpse, and it's only a subtle thing in the way he's holding himself, in the way that he is open, that Caesar grasps onto, and likewise from Malcolm, and they form this relationship.
Go! Okay, we're going.
We're both fathers. We both, have partners and friends and a community that we've earned and have respect and trust and love within. We both, are reaching out to help.
We both have families. You want to protect yours, I want to protect mine. It's our only chance for peace.
This relationship grows, and there's, it's not an easy relationship because it breaks down at times. Caesar feels that they've been betrayed at times. It's a very complex relationship, but it ends up basically with both sides. As the conflict escalates, they realize in each other that they need each other.
Are you aware?
No!
They are going to turn on you.
I was lucky enough to catch up with the performance capture maestro Andy Serkis in London to grill him over what we can expect from one of the most anticipated sequels of the year.
The first movie, it was 2011, and this film, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, it kind of comes out of nowhere to a certain degree to be both a huge hit and really, really good. And now we're here and we've got a sequel and we've got a new director. So what has Matt Reeves, in your opinion, brought to this next instalment?
Well, one of the brilliant things about Matt as a human being and as a director is the fact that he totally, he didn't want to come in and just kind of ride roughshod over what Rupert had done. He absolutely loved what Rupert Wyatt had done and the emotionality within that first film, and that was the thing he wanted to concentrate, and that's what he took from it, and that was his starting point. So he wanted to not go too far into the future, and I think crucially, the point that he chose to drop anchor with this story is it was really successful. He didn't want to go, we know what's going to happen, we know what the end result is going to be. At some point we're going to end up where the apes have inherited the earth. He didn't want to go there. He wanted to see this evolutionary phase, to really tease that out, and through the eyes of Caesar.
Malcolm, I'm thinking one of us should stand guard tonight.
With what? They took our guns.
If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead already.
Maybe they're just taking their time. They already killed off half the planet already.
I think he really seeks out these very intimate moments between people that aren't overwritten, but that are these really brave moments where they're being really true, and I think especially in this film.
Come on.
What?
You can't honestly blame the apes.
Who the hell else am I gonna blame?
It's this giant 3D spectacle, but he's created these intimate moments where these two communities are trying to have compassion for each other.
It was a simian flu.
It was a virus created by scientists in a lab. The chimps they were testing on didn't really have a say in the matter.
Spare me the hippy-dippy boot. You telling me you don't get sick to your stomach at the sight of them? Huh?
I was approached by the studio, and I've been a lifelong Planet of the Apes fan, and I loved Rise. I was so taken with the way that story made you identify with an ape. You became an ape. The most human character in that story is Caesar, an ape, and I thought that was amazing. I loved Andy Serkis's performance and what Weta had done and the way Rupert Wyatt put it together. So when they approached me about it, I was a little skeptical. I thought, wait a minute, I love this world so much, and why is Rupert not doing it? And it turned out that Rupert had many reasons that he didn't want to do it, and they had a new story that they wanted to do, and they pitched it to me, and the irony was, I said, oh, I see, well, you know what, I don't think that's the story I would do. So I thought I wasn't going to do this movie. And they said, no, wait, what would you do? And I said, well, what I would do is I'd continue what you guys did in the first movie. I'd do a story that was Caesar-centric. I'd do a story not just about the post-apocalyptic human world and have the apes come into it. I'd start actually in the ape world. I feel like there's a whole movie we've never seen that starts with the world that Caesar and the apes create, and make it like the beginning of 2001, where instead of Dawn of Man, it's Dawn of Intelligent Apes.
We were hanging. We were hanging out down at the swimming hole. Hanging out. Hanging. You can read?
Then once you see that and you discover that family, you connect to that family, you discover there are still humans, and it's really a story of two families, an ape family and a human family, and the question under everything becomes a question of coexistence. Could they live together? And I pitched this out to them, and they said, that sounds good, are you in? And I was like, what? Okay. And I said, wait, so you're literally telling me I can do that story? And they said, yeah, that sounds great. And I said, so what's the catch? And they said, the catch is you have to be shooting in about 2.5 or 3 months. And I was like, oh, that is a catch. And I have to say that being a lifelong fan of the franchise and seeing the opportunity to do something that was a grand sort of tentpole film, but that was also about something, that was too irresistible to pass up. And so I jumped in, and Mark Baumbach, who was the writer that they hired, he and I just pounded out that story, and then that was that, and here we are.
Caesar's the only one that can stop this.
They don't want a war.
Who's saving the human race?
It's a really impressive cast in this movie. I mean, you've got obviously Gary Oldman and like Jason Clarke on the human side. But I think even more tantalizingly is Toby Kebbell joining the performance capture family as Cobra.
Yeah. Toby, I mean, we met, he came to the Imaginarium, actually, which is our performance capture studio in London, and it was absolutely clear from the moment that he walked through the door he wanted that job, and it was such a brilliant role. He just owned it as soon as he came in.
Caesar!
He has got this incredible facility to just bury himself in a character, and he didn't need, you know, he needed a little bit of tuition from Terry Notary in terms of, Terry Notary was our performance coach. He taught everybody how to be their various different apes, whether they're gorillas or chimpanzees or orangutans. But Toby is so instinctive with it, and with the technology, and he realised, of course, that it's just acting. It's just being a character and burying yourself in that character and giving yourself over to that character.
You know the scary thing about them? They don't need power. Lights, heat, nothing. That's the advantage. That's what makes them stronger.
Since pioneering the technology as Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Andy Serkis has become the go-to guy for all things performance capture.
They stole it from us. Sneaky little hobbitses.
But what is it about him that has made him become synonymous with the technology?
I need to speak to Caesar!
I was so terrified coming in because, as a director, never having done mocap before, I was worried that it would somehow be an obstacle to my normal process of working with actors. And what I found was that Andy Serkis is not a master of mocap, though he is. He's a masterful actor. And that part of it was a huge relief, because I realized directing him was no different. He just wears a helmet cam that records his facial performance that then the geniuses at Weta find a way to translate onto the anatomy of an ape. But what he's doing is just being in the moment in the most authentic way possible, the way the best actors I've ever worked with work.
Let us help you.
You stay.
You have Andy, this amazing, open, accessible actor who's just going for it. I mean, every take, going, crying, angry, this voice, like shaking. You get Andy, not a tennis ball. It's unbelievable.
We learned so much just being around him on set, watching him perform, because he just doesn't come in with any I don't think when he's doing a scene, he doesn't have it already worked out in his head. He'll see and feel the situation, and he lets it organically happen, and it's amazing to watch.
Apes! Do not want war! Do not come back.
To be able to do intimate performance scenes in a movie of this kind, with this level of effects, it all hinges on believability, and having the actors play off of each other and relate to each other, that's how you do it. And the fact that that can be done now, you know, in the past, it would have been that you would shoot shots and then you would go into the volume and you'd have to get those performances in the volume. The big revolution here was taking these things into real sets, into places that were like on location. We shot in the woods, in the rain, all these realistic places, not realistic, real places, so that we could add that realism to the film, and the actors were able to play off of another actor, an actor who was giving them so much. So in a way, it made their job so much easier. I mean, to act opposite Andy Serkis is to have somebody who's giving you as much as any great actor gives.
What I find fascinating is that as a series, the Planet of the Apes movies have always really pushed the boundaries of special effects and makeup effects. I mean, to talk about the work that John Chambers did back on the 1968 original. I mean, that at the time was groundbreaking.
Of course, people had never seen anything like it. I mean, there were countless tests leading up to that point where they were not sure whether it was going to work or not, and there was this epiphany moment where they realised this makeup was going to be able to do what they wanted to do, which was to take Pierre Boulet's book and bring it to life. And, you know, it could finally act as an allegorical movie with a great degree of social commentary, and that's why it survived, because the image of you know, when we watch those films, as I did, and I'm sure you did see when you saw the original, of seeing apes on horseback harvesting human beings in nets, and that final image of the Statue of Liberty at the end of the first movie, it was so powerful. that it comes back and then gets reinvented, and now of course using performance capture technology, where we can go even further in the sense that the emotional content of the characters doesn't have to be, we don't have to fight through layers of latex and prosthetics. We can very much play the internal thoughts. And Caesar, for instance, you know, I'm not battling with, you know, keeping my face moving through layers of rubber to convey what Caesar's thinking and feeling.
Human life!
We have really reached a new level of realism with the work of Weta, performance capture, and actors like yourself. Obviously, you are so heavily involved in the process of creating this character Caesar on screen. Are you still surprised when you see the finished effect on the cinema screen?
I mean, the level of the rendering is kind of off the chain now with Weta of just the software that they've developed and all of their techniques and the artistry, and also the accumulated knowledge of having worked on performance capture, and particularly facial performance capture for the last 15 years or 14 years. It really does show, because they totally understand how to interpolate an actor's performance. So the performance is created and authored on set by the actors, but then to be able to subtly take those performances and transfer them and map them onto the faces of the apes without losing any of the fidelity to what's really going on. The underlying emotion of the performance is a remarkable skill, and that's what's improved. So yeah, I mean, when we saw shots on this, it was a great leap forward, and everybody has been blown away by it.
Is any of this making any sense to you?
Yes. Family. Future.
After they've added the layers of effect around it and it's become Caesar, are you still watching your performance? I mean, the minute intricacies that you performed on set, they just translate completely now.
That's exactly what it does. I mean, that's the advance. You know, that's where it's got to. The fidelity to the actual performance is greater now than ever. So it reads every single nuance of eye movement or blink or you know, welling up or tearing or anything that you're doing as an actor on set is faithfully reproduced by the artistry of the animators.
Don't you move!
Should we shoot him? Maybe.
Whoa.
Hey.
All right.
Oh, you want a drink?
All
right.
Easy.
All
right.
The world has changed such a lot since when I started with Lord of the Rings, and it is a standard industry tool now. It's just part of what we do. It's part of the actor's toolkit, and it is just another way of recording an actor's performance.
To take you back to Lord of the Rings and of course Gollum and the first time you came into contact with this technology, which I guess to a certain degree was in its infancy back then. What were your first impressions when you were sort of told this is how this is going to work? I mean, to now be here having done so much work in this medium, what was it like back then when someone goes, this is performance capture?
Well, it didn't really happen like that. It was look, Andy, Peter Jackson gets in touch and says, I want you to play Gollum in the Lord of the Rings, but we're not quite sure how it's finally going to work. Whether, you know, we want you to be on set, we want you to play the role. We don't know. It's going to be animated and it's going to manifest itself finally on screen as a digital character. But we just want to try out this technology. It might work, it might not. It's called motion capture. It's come out of the medical industry and it's been used in video games. So, you know, it was very early days. But I remember vividly the first time of seeing myself getting into a motion capture suit and seeing Gollum on screen, a very basic grey shaded model of Gollum and moving around, and seeing Gollum moving around in unison with me, and I just thought, this is utterly magical. This is great. But the processes were long and protracted, and in fact facially it was a different process then to how it is now. Now we're directly driving the facial muscles of the avatar character that we're playing, in this case Apes. Back then it was a case of my performance being filmed on 35mm film, and then the animators using shaders and sliders, just literally matching every single every frame of facial expression. So it's moved on in huge leaps and bounds.
with us on Sky 1 HD as wrestling takes centre stage with our WWE superstars. Meanwhile, veiled compliments and a confetti of criticisms on Sky Living HD, whilst Brighton reveals its urban secrets on Sky Atlantic HD.